Hello there, and welcome to the Tammy Tuckey Show. My name is Tammy Tuckey, and it's good to see you. I cannot tell you how many documentaries, films, TV shows, books I've seen and read over the years about the royal family and Princess Diana. And that's thanks to my mom, who was a huge fan ever since she woke up at 4 in the morning to watch Princess Diana's wedding. So I've been getting word and all the stories from my mom over the years. So of course, that my obsession continued on. And there's this continuous fascination with the royal family, with Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. And it's kind of hard to believe that next year will mark 30 years since Diana's passing and 5 years since the Queen's passing. So, my guest today has worked for both of these remarkable women, 11 years with the Queen and 10 years with Diana. And his new book is The Royal Insider. Let's take a look at that. It's been recently released, and there's a link in the show notes to go ahead and get a copy of your own, which you don't want to miss out on. It's a wonderful read about the highs and the lows of his tenure working for the royal family. So today, I'm really excited to have our author extraordinaire, Paul Burrell, to the show. Hi there, Paul.
Hello, it's good to be with you.
Oh gosh, it's as I said with the documentaries, I've seen you on so many, and it's kind of surreal to be talking to you. So thank you for being on the show. And I have to say, when I sat down to read your book, I spent the entire evening reading it. Like I didn't put it down, and I read the whole thing.
Well,
And I
Tammy,
have to tell you, it's great.
I'm a lucky man, very lucky man. I'm an ordinary man, but I've been thrown into an extraordinary life, and I've witnessed things that people can only dream of. So for 21 years living with that family, can you imagine the things I've seen? But it hasn't always been wonderful. It has been a roller coaster ride, and as you said in your intro, everybody remembers where they were when they heard the news Princess Diana had died.
Mhm.
And it changed. Something shifted and changed because that generation had watched the wedding, as you said, and
Mhm.
we'd all sort of grown up with her, and she became a role model for so many young women. And it's interesting, isn't it, that 30 years on, she's still a role model for so many, and we still
Yes.
remember her.
I think a lot of people had been watching The Crown for a couple years, and now over here in the States, our obsession is the JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, because their series was on, and there was an episode that was about Princess Diana passing away and their
Yes.
reflection on the horrors of of the paparazzi. So again, she, regardless of what the subject is, she kind of, her name comes up and everybody goes, there she is. And I just have, when I think about her, because I passed away a year, not hide it, she passed away a year after I was born. But I remember my mom would show me all these wonderful videos of her with her children and doing really wonderful things like supporting various hospitals. So, you were there for a
Mm.
lot of this journey with her for a good 10
Mhm.
years. Can you tell
Yes.
me the moment you first met her?
I can. I first met her when she came as a guest of the Prince of Wales to Balmoral Castle. She came when she was Lady Diana Spencer in 1980. Um, she arrived at the front door, and I took her to her room, and she said, "I think I'm out of my depth. Would you stay for a while and have a chat and tell me what happens? Because I don't know the routine of this house." So I said, "Right, it's nearly tea time. You'll go down for a cup of tea with the Queen." "I don't drink tea." I said, "I'll make sure there's a cup of coffee there for you." And then what happens? I said, "Well, then when tea is cleared, you'll go into the drawing room and you'll play cards. Do you play canasta or bridge?" Oh, she said, "I do. I'm a good card player." "Then can I suggest that you go and sit at the card table with the Queen and the Queen Mother, because they play
Ooh.
cards, and that's how to get into the royal set. You sit with the royals and chat with them. Then you'll have a drink." "I don't drink." I said, "Well, a glass of water, and the Queen will have a gin and tonic. Well, both Queens will have a gin and tonic. And
Mhm.
then you go and dress for dinner. What have you brought to dress?" And she showed me her evening dress, one evening dress for a weekend. I said, "Honestly, you need an evening dress for every night. So I'll ask the lady in waiting, who's a similar size to you, and we'll find you some dresses to wear." So I don't think she ever forgot meeting me. And then at dinner, She said, I said, there's 20 for dinner. So make sure you know where you're sitting. Look at the table board. There'll be a board to tell you exactly where you're sitting. She said, I'll get lost. I said, oh, let me make it easy for you. I'll stand behind your seat. So that when you come into the dining room, look for my face and head for me. And that's where you'll be. And she remembered that. And as she came and visited many, many years before I worked for her, she always made a beeline for me, and she'd make a beeline for my family, and she got to know my wife and my children, and we became very close over 21 years.
Mm-hmm. And so you said that you had worked with the Queen prior to meeting Diana. So,
Yeah.
but that journey kind of started out with getting a letter in the mail. And I did want to highlight your mom because she was somebody special in your life. And I didn't realize she had passed until I read your book.
Yes.
And my mom recently passed. And as you wrote in the book, you're like, it changes your world when that moment happens, when you lose your
Mums
mom.
are very
And
special.
so,
Yeah.
yes.
Mums
And
are
so,
very special. Women have shaped my life. Women. My mother, the Queen, Diana, and my wife, Maria. 4 women shaped me and made me the man I am today. And I owe it all really to my mother. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I was a coal miner's son in the north of England, and I wanted to escape. I wanted to see the world. So I wrote off for jobs with cruise lines, and I wanted to be an air steward, and I wanted to travel. And then I thought, I could work in a hotel. They seemed like palaces to me. And one day, my principal at college said to me, they're looking for boys like you to train at Buckingham Palace. I said, what? He said, would you like to go for an interview? I said, yes. So I went. I didn't do too well at the interview because I was a lad from the north of England and I didn't know the way of the world. I didn't know to say yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, and be very courteous. I didn't have that graciousness in those days. So I failed the interview. They wrote to me and said, I'm sorry that there isn't a position at the moment and we'll keep you on file. Now, fast forward, just before the princess died, my mum died. So I lost 2 special women in my life in the same year. But I stood beside my mother's grave and my little brother turned to me and said, I've got something to tell you. All those years ago, when mum rang you and told you that you'd had the letter from Buckingham Palace who'd accepted you and given you a job as a footman, that you hadn't got a clue what a footman was, but you took the job, you owe it to our mother. I said, well, why? He said, because that morning I was getting ready for school. I was 10 and the postman arrived. 2 letters landed on the postmat inside the door, and mum went and picked up the 2. And she used to wear a wraparound pinny with a pocket in the front, and she pushed them into the pocket and went to the breakfast table and saw that one had a crest on the back. So she opened it very carefully, thinking it was something from the government. She opened the letter and it was offering me a job as a footman at Buckingham Palace. Then the other letter she opened, offering me a job as a steward on board the world's most famous ocean liner, the Queen Elizabeth II. Our mother looked at the 2 letters and my brother said, she turned to me and said, you must never tell Paul as long as I live what I'm about to do. She put the letter from Cunard on the coal fire and they watched my future at sea go up in smoke. So he said to me, I kept my promise and she's here now. She's in her grave, resting in peace. I've been dying to ask you, if she'd given you the choice, what would you have chosen? I said, I'd have chosen a life at sea. I wanted to see the world. She knew that. She knew that. So she didn't give you the choice. She chose for you. So I say to children today, listen to your mother. She knows best. She's the person that grew you. She's the person that loves you most. So listen to her. She makes the decisions and in wise decisions for you that you might not understand at the time, but later in life you will. So thank you, Mum.
She sent you on a path, and when you were talking a little bit about her, she had told you what you would have been named if you were a girl. Do you remember what you
Yes,
said?
they wanted a girl. They wanted a girl. They hadn't got any girls in the family, so they wanted a girl, and she was going to be called Pamela. And when I was born, incidentally, in the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Chesterfield in Derbyshire in 1958, only 6 years after the Queen was crowned, well, actually 5 years after she was crowned, but 6 years after she was ascended the throne, they couldn't decide. They were shocked. The whole family had expected a girl. So my mother turned to the midwife and said, I haven't got a clue. What's the nearest name to Pamela? And the midwife said, Paul. I was named Paul.
I had to put down the book for a second because my mom's name's Pamela. I went, oh my God. I was like, hello, my mom must be reading with me.
Yes.
So I was like, that was
I
hilarious.
believe in little messages and signs, that happen through
Yes.
life, like signposts. We see them, we read them, take notice of them, because they're sent from a different place, somewhere we don't quite understand. And I get messages on a daily basis, and I take notice of them. And I think, I wonder, should I do something about that? Yes, that's meant to make me do something about that. And I do.
Yep.
I think it's a good thing to remember. Something the princess taught me was, every day of your life, do something for someone else without them knowing. And I try to keep up. I try to keep up with that, because
I like
that's
that.
something good to do.
I feel like a lot of people want their kindness recognized, and they do all these TikTok videos, and it makes me uncomfortable because, kindness is, paying for somebody's coffee, but you're not supposed to be rewarded for that. It's because you're giving kindness, and that adds to the world.
That's the key. The key is not to be thanked for it and not to receive any thanks for it. Do things selflessly. I was taught that by a very special lady.
Well, you say in the book that your life has been a tapestry. So I was curious, what colors are in your tapestry, would you say?
Well, in the beginning, it was only black and white from the coal mines. And then the rich embroidery started to get richer as I went along in my life. And by the time I arrived at Buckingham Palace, I could sew in a few reds and golds, as my liveries and my uniforms would tell you that I dressed in Technicolor, not in black and white. I lived in a Technicolor world now. And by 1976, when I arrived at Buckingham Palace, seems a long time ago, doesn't it? 77 was the Queen's Silver Jubilee, and that was an explosion of color as Her Majesty rode in the golden coronation coach to St. Paul's Cathedral. I just looked in, I just couldn't believe, pinch me. I could not believe that I was inside Buckingham Palace watching this unfold in front of my eyes.
I can only imagine. I remember when you were detailing Buckingham Palace, you made it more colorful than I have ever thought it would be. It was very flamboyant. Dare I say camp? Everybody's getting dressed up, and you said it was kind of, you said it was like an introduction to a lot of theater people and a lot of people you met that were gay. So can you tell me a little bit about that immersion into a new world?
Well, that world was very theatrical. I mean, the Queen used to call her dresses her costumes. She would dress up into a costume and step onto the world stage and perform her role as Queen. When she came home, she'd take off the costume, put on some normal clothes like a tweed skirt and a twin set and pearls, and be Elizabeth. There were two people. I got to know both of them. I knew Elizabeth better than I knew the Queen, because I saw her in behind closed doors in close quarters, and she let her guard down in front of me, because she was just an ordinary person like anyone's grandmother. You want to put your arm around. I became very fond of Her Majesty. And I did love her like a mother. She became my surrogate mother. So
Well, she
I
took
think
very good care of you. You had
she
injuries, and
did.
she sent you to the best doctors, God
She
forbid,
did.
and they
She
saved your
did.
life at some time.
But I think it's almost unbelievable for most people to understand because you didn't witness it. And because the
No.
Queen said she had to be seen to be believed, not many
Mhm.
people can understand this world that I lived in that was quite ordinary in lots of ways. And yes, when I was injured in America, when we went to Kentucky to look at her broodmares kept at Lane's End Farm by Will Farish, we'd go every year. And one year I fell down the main staircase. Think Dallas, think that huge staircase. And I fell from the top to the bottom and injured my spine.
Mm.
Within an hour, I was in hospital and being operated on. Had that not happened, I would have been in a wheelchair. And
Mm.
so I have the Queen to thank for that. And when she died, I thought of all these things that she'd done for me and my family. And I could only say thank you for all the things you did for me. And
Mhm.
thank you for looking after me.
And you
But
weren't
getting
even
back to
able to go.
the theatrical
Go ahead.
world you talked about, yes, it is dressing up. And we had a huge dressing up box, and I had about 7 different uniforms. Had to make sure that
Mm.
I knew what to wear on what occasion. And we
Mhm.
wear pink silk stockings, red velvet knee breeches tied with gold tassels, patent leather black shoes with buckles on the front, and heavy red coats with the ruff at the neck, and a velvet riding cap. Now, it looks like something from a Cinderella pantomime or a Disney movie, but this was our life. This was a real life, and this is what had happened for hundreds of years. And some of the boys loved it more than others. A lot of them were gay because that sort of theatrical lifestyle attracts gay people, and the royal family attract gay people, and they love to be surrounded by lots of gay people because they're safe and
Mhm.
because they don't have a wife and children to run home to. They can devote their entire life to looking after them. So
Mhm.
that's why they were very valuable people. And the Queen looked after them. She loved it. She loved, and it's happened for generations after generation. Prince Philip was a little angry about it all because he would say, I don't know why you have to surround yourself with these sycophants, because they were always fawning to his wife. And he was an alpha male, and he didn't like that
Yes.
around him. Although he did like the company of ladies, I have to say, my wife was his maid, and he took great care of her, the way the Queen took
Mm.
care of me. So when we came together as a couple and married below stairs, the Queen said how delighted she was because as there was a royal marriage below stairs as well as upstairs. We married 2 years after Diana and Charles. She was absolutely delighted by it all.
And she would host parties, and you guys would get dressed up. Like my favorite thing was reading you had a costume of Pete's dragon, and I was like, "Oh my God, I love you, Paul, because I love Pete's dragon too." So, she
We
would
did.
celebrate with you guys.
Yes, at Balmoral, we had a fancy dress party every year, and we'd
Mhm.
all make our own costumes. And with chicken mesh and paper mache, I made the most enormous dragon in my room at Balmoral without anyone knowing. And then I had to get out of the door and down the corridor and down to the recreation hall where Her Majesty would be judging the fancy dress competition. So my little legs were working inside this huge dragon, and it was faithful to the original. It had a long neck and a small head and a huge body. My little legs were working underneath it to get me down to the recreation. I could hardly get through the door. The Queen howled with laughter when she saw the dragon coming through the door with his yellow tummy and green body. It was it was something to behold.
I just love that she has this sense of humor, and I know you've said many times that you're not a fan of The Crown because that wasn't
No,
shown, that,
it
we're just
wasn't.
seeing more of the rigid side of the Queen, not
You
the,
saw, yes, you saw the serious dour, Queen. You didn't
Mhm.
see Elizabeth. And although I admire all the actresses who played the Queen, they were playing to a script written for them, so they couldn't change it in any
Mhm.
way. But I knew a warm, kind, generous, Christian, lovely lady that you would love too if you could have only met Elizabeth. But everyone
Mm.
saw the Queen. And that's why I don't think The Crown faithfully represents the Queen or Diana. And Diana has to be
Mhm.
the most misrepresented and misinterpreted woman of our times. She was made
Mhm.
to be alone, lonely, vulnerable, slightly cuckoo. I mean, that's the way she's portrayed. That's not who I knew. Had they put
Mhm.
me beside her the way I was in real life, she wouldn't have
Mhm.
been vulnerable or alone. But they didn't want that. They wanted to project something else. And that's what I get crazy. I get mad about not representing people, because these shows become history and people
Mhm.
watch them and think
Yes.
that's what happened.
That's what
No,
happened. Yeah.
it's not what
It's
happened,
not.
but you didn't see it. And that's why I feel I have my critics, of course, but I feel I have a responsibility to stand up and tell people this is what it was like, and this is who the people were, and it's not what you think. Otherwise, if people
Mhm.
who haven't witnessed it, if they write it, it's going to be written completely differently, and history is going to be
Mhm.
changed. So I had to sit
Well,
down, and I've been honest and frank in my books, and I've been true to the people, the characters. Otherwise, I'll have something to answer to when I leave this life and go to the next. They'll be
well,
waiting
you're
for me.
you're right on the you're right on the fact that I feel like a lot of people portray Princess Diana in such a, a sad way, but I thought remembering what you had written in in other past books and what other people
Mm.
had said, really she was in the start of this new life for herself.
She was.
And that's why everybody was so shocked and upset by her
Mm,
passing, because it was it
mm.
was a new life. She had sold her dresses. She was
Yeah.
possibly going to make a movie with Kevin Costner, possibly, doing more things
Shedding
in
her skin.
America. So,
Yeah.
yes,
And she did
yes.
you not many people know, did you know that she had a date with John in New York?
No.
Yes,
When
she
was
did.
this?
She had a date with him. She went out for dinner with him because she was fascinated by the Kennedys and the clan, because it was almost like the Windsors, a reflection of the Windsors in
Oh,
America,
yes.
a
Oh,
dynasty.
yes.
And she said to me, I need to find someone to look after me. I need someone to look after me in the style which I've become accustomed. And that would have to be an Onassis type of person, wouldn't it? And did you notice
Mm.
towards the end of her life, Princess Diana had an outfit made, which was almost a replica of Jackie Kennedy's outfit, with the pink pillbox hat and the pink little suit in the
Yeah.
1960s style? That was her homage to Jackie Kennedy. But she did have a date
Ooh.
with John, and she said, we didn't have very much to talk about because he wanted to talk about himself.
Mm. Well, it's interesting you say that. I just read JFK Jr.'s his assistant, Rosemary Terenzio. She had a book, and she said that John F. Kennedy, this must have been the same date, because she said that he took her out because he wanted her on the magazine. And she
Oh,
told him later
that's
after
right.
that she did not want to do the magazine. So guess what? They were both coming into this dinner with different agendas.
Yes.
So
Yes, they were,
but
and
that would
it
have been
didn't work.
interesting. Can you
But
imagine?
but the night Kevin Costner rang, and this is true, and you can ask him this question. He rang, and I took the call, and I said to the princess, "Is Kevin Costner on the phone?" I was used to taking calls from Michael Jackson and people like that, but Kevin Costner was a new one. Tom Hanks wasn't a new one. Tom Cruise wasn't a new one. Michael Jackson was a new one, but Kevin Costner. I said, "What does he want?" She said, "Come and listen." So I'm on the other end of the phone listening, and he said, "I'm going to send you the script. I've got the script for Bodyguard 2, and I want you to be in it, and I want to be your bodyguard in the movie." And then she said, "But I can't sing." I think she was getting a few crossed wires with Whitney Houston. And he said, "You don't have to sing. You just have to be in the movie." So they had this conversation. She put the phone down. She sat there and she said, Can you imagine what the Queen would say if I appeared in the Bodyguard 2? Of course, it wasn't possible. She couldn't do it, but she was very amused and flattered that Kevin Costner should think of her.
Well, then again, the Queen, she did her own little film with Daniel Craig. So
yes, she did. And that was quite
hilarious.
magical. But the best was the little snippet she did with Paddington Bear for her
with
Platinum Jubilee. And he said, I've got a marmalade sandwich here. And she said, I have one too. I keep it in here. And she pulls it out of her handbag. Oh, doesn't that make your heart melt?
See, that's like the side that was when I saw these videos. I'm like, good Lord, I can't believe she's doing it, because I guess for Americans, we see her in a different light, you know.
You do. And that was Elizabeth.
So glad.
Elizabeth was doing that. And she was a one-take wonder. You know, she did that all in one take. She was a professional.
She got it down. She's like, hey, I got this. She could have been an actress.
I think she was an actress in many ways, performing a role.
Yes.
She was. The role which she wanted in life was to be a countrywoman, to live on a farm, surrounded by animals and dogs, and live a normal life. But that life was never meant for her. But didn't she do well? 70 years, and she performed that role impeccably. And next year, as you said, would have been her. No, on April the 21st this year would have been her 100th birthday, and the King is going to unveil the National Memorial to his mother in St. James's Park, in the shadows of Buckingham Palace. He will unveil this memorial. It's not just to the Queen, it's to Prince Philip as well. The two of them will be forever enshrined there in London. So your viewers should go and see it. Yeah.
Are they doing like something similar with the Princess Diana Memorial, where there's going to be a statue, or is this just
that's
more
been
of a
done?
Monument?
There is a statue to Princess Diana in Kensington Palace Gardens. William and Harry unveiled that. But there's also an incredible exhibition at the King's Gallery at Buckingham Palace of all the Queen's costumes from the years.
Yes.
And I think that's a well worth visit. If anybody's going to London this year, go and see that.
Oh, the colors. The colors is going to be
every
great.
color of the rainbow.
Oh, gosh.
The Queen's favorite color, her favorite color was turquoise. That aqua blue.
Well, that was her color. That and pink, I thought were really beautiful on her.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. And so when you're talking about Kensington Palace, I got to visit the gardens, which were absolutely fantastic. I didn't know how big it was. I was like, holy crow. But the house was lovely. There were a couple of Diana's outfits actually there, so it was wonderful to see them, and the Queen's outfits. But I know a lot of people talk to you about the days after Diana passed, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens afterwards, because it's like 2 months, 2 days, 2 weeks goes by, 2 months, and slowly things go back to normal. But the person who has lost somebody, their normal is not it's never going to be normal again.
No, it's never going to be the same again.
Yeah, and I'll actually throw it back to Rose Marie, who was JFK Jr.'s assistant. I just finished her book too, and she was tasked with putting all the clothes away in the apartment.
Like me, yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. So, what exactly did you have to do, because you were still grieving, and this is a terrible time, but you're like, I still have to go on with the show, as they say, right? So, what were you doing?
Well, I've been to Paris. I brought the princess home. I came back on the plane. And I asked the Queen if she could come and stay, if the princess could come back to Kensington Palace for one last night before the funeral. And she said, that's a very good idea. So I had her back for one night. And I said to the family, why don't you come and pay your respects to the princess and sit with me? Because I'm going to stay up all night. I'm going to have a vigil with her. This is my last night on this earth with her. So I'm not going to miss a beat of this. So I lit every candle in the house, every candelabra. It was a beautiful setting. I asked the policeman to bring in some of the flowers that people had laid at the gates, and I arranged them in vases around her. And I asked the family to come. Do you know, nobody came? Nobody came. The Bishop of London sat outside in the corridor, and I sat in the room with the princess. And I said to her, it's just like old times, isn't it? It's just me and you rattling around this place, just me and you. So I'm going to talk to you all night. I'm going to talk to you about my service with you and the things we've experienced, the places we've been, the people we've met. So I went and I got her address book from her desk, and I started with A and worked my way through to Z. And everybody in that address book, including Tom Hanks and Tom Cruise, and I talked about, because I knew them all. They were all the princess's friends. So I thought this is a good catalogue of all her friends. So we talked about everybody. Well, I did, and I gossiped with her all night. And then in the morning, I had to let go of her and give her back to the world. And that's when you saw the carriage appear at Kensington Palace and on her way to Westminster Abbey. But after the funeral at Althorpe, it's pronounced Althorpe, not Althorpe, at Althorpe, I stood on the island and said my goodbye again, and then came home. And then my task was to catalogue her world, everything in it. I had to do an inventory of everything, down to the last detail, down to the last ring, down to the last pair of shoes, down to the last piece of paper, everything in her life. And I made a catalogue of everything and took photographs of everything so that there would be a record of everything. And then once that was done, I didn't have a job anymore. And I was asked, when would I be leaving my Grace and Favour accommodation? And I thought, well, that's quick. That's harsh. I've just lost my job, my income. My boys had lost their schools. I'd lost my home. We lost everything. I'd invested my entire life in Diana, and suddenly she wasn't there. So what to do? What to do? I went to Buckingham Palace and spoke with the Queen about it. And I said, I could come back to you, Your Majesty. She said, Paul, that's not the answer. You have to keep moving forward. Never go backwards. So I took her wise words and I became the fundraising manager for her memorial fund. And that's what catapulted me then into the public eye, because I became the face of fundraising for her fund. And I even went to Hollywood. I went to Hollywood in 1998, the year after her death, and attended the Oscars. I had to take La Cour de la Mer, The Heart of the Ocean, which was being produced by Asprey, the crown jeweler, to Hollywood for Celine Dion to wear at the Oscars.
Oh my God.
My life is becoming more and more surreal. So as I was sitting in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, my telephone rang and the lady said, is that Paul Burrell? I said, yes. She said, it's Elizabeth Taylor. And I thought, no, it's not. It's not Elizabeth Taylor. She said, I'm having a party tonight in my home and I wanted you to come and attend. Victoria Brinner, my goddaughter, tells me that you're here and I'd like to see you. Will you come? I said, of course I'll come. I'll send a car for you. So at 6 o'clock, a car arrived and I went up to Neames Drive in the Hollywood Hills to Elizabeth Taylor's home. Chris Wilding opened the car door. I thought, well, I've obviously arrived at the right place. And as I went into the room, I couldn't see Elizabeth anywhere. So I said to him, is she here? Oh, no, she's not feeling very well. I've been told to send you up to her bedroom.
Oh.
I'm in black tie. I can't take you up, Paul. I'm told to send you up. So you go up the staircase and turn on the landing, and it's the first on the right. So up the staircase I go, into the bedroom, knock on the door, come in. In I go, white satin bed. She's lying on her bed, propped up with white satin pillows in a white satin negligee with no hair. She didn't wear, she always wore wigs. So she's lying there. But as I approached the bed, those eyes hit me.
And yes, those purple eyes.
She patted the side of the bed and said, Move over, sugar. I thought she was talking to me, but she was talking to a little ball of fluff that moved, and it was the dog. And I sat in that little warm patch beside Elizabeth Taylor, and we watched a plasma screen TV and watched Jack Nicholson getting his Oscar for As Good as It Gets. That marks it to that moment in time. And
Oh my gosh.
she's jumping up and down in bed and clapping and cheering and said, I voted for Jack. I wanted him to win. And then she said, are you going to the parties? I said, well, yes, I'm going to Vanity Fair's party and I'm going to Elton's party. Oh, you'll go to them all, she said. You know who's downstairs? And he will take you to all the parties. Roddy McDowell. He's a great friend of mine, she said, and he knows everybody.
God.
So I was chaperoned by Roddy McDowell, having met Elizabeth Taylor in her bedroom. Before I left, she said, would you like to hold my Oscars? And I thought it was a euphemism. I didn't understand what she was saying. My brain had fused by now. I was completely overloaded. My senses had gone completely. Do you want to hold my Oscars? I'm thinking, okay, fine. Yes. Where are they? She said, they're there. 3 Oscars on a shelf. I picked up, I'm sure it was Raintree County and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It may not have been, but I stood there in Elizabeth Taylor's bedroom holding her Oscars on Oscar night. Does it get any better than that?
Oh my gosh. What a good Lord, Paul. You have more. I guess you have another book in you, and that's going to be one of the stories.
So many stories. It just happens. It just happens. But remember, I am an ordinary man from a very ordinary background. It's just been an extraordinary life. And now my life is controlled by men. You see how it changes. Diana left me. She disappeared. I wanted to go with her, but I couldn't. Then men took over. Out of the grief of losing her, my marriage collapsed, and I met a man on a train. Wasn't supposed to be on the train. He wasn't supposed to be there. We didn't even speak. We swapped. He gave me his card as he left the train. That man became my husband. Bizarre. So now he looks after me because I can't look after myself. I'm great at looking after other people, but I can't look after myself. And my sons, Alex and Nick, they took over. They look after their dad. And now they gave me my greatest gift. They gave me Luca, my little grandson, who's only 2.5. And he is the treasure I always wanted and never expected. So God has been kind to me in the end. In the end, it has been a roller coaster, but we got there in the end. And I think Diana would say to me, how come you survived, Paul, and I didn't? What do you have? She once asked me that question. Well, I asked her. I said to her, why did you choose me? Why did you want me? She said, because you've got something the rest haven't got. And I thought, oh, this is going to be good. And it wasn't really that good. She said, common sense. That I had street smarts. That's what pulled me through all of my career. I kept my feet on the ground. I remembered who I was, and I didn't get carried away.
And you read the room. She read the room very well too. I feel like you two could read people as well. So we
were a very good team. I was a backup. I could suss the room out and I tell her what's what before she got there. Good plan.
And actually,
Batman,
because I didn't.
Good plan, Batman and Robin, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. But the reason I found out about your book, again, The Royal Insider, and again, the link is in the show notes below because everybody should grab a copy. There's more stories that we're not going to be able to hit today. But you had mentioned in an interview that you did get to sit down with Prince William and Prince Harry, and you had never acknowledged this, only because now that Prince Harry's book Spare came out, now you're acknowledging it. Now, I know the conversation's private that you had with them, because I remember that there was the dilemma of when you were up for certain charges, and they had released a really interesting statement saying that they were not very happy with you. So the fact that they asked to sit and meet with you years later to talk to you, I think is a very grown-up thing of them to do, obviously. So
I
did you
felt,
feel going out of that meeting that you felt that there was an understanding that there was
yes,
still love there?
yes, I felt vindicated by that. I didn't ask for the meeting, they did. William contacted me and wanted me to go to Kensington Palace, so I took my husband with me. And the four of us sat in a room for 2 hours and we talked about everything. And William acknowledged the fact that when they were away at school, William and Harry were at boarding school, they didn't see very much of their mother and they didn't really know what was happening in her world. And William said to me, if we want to know something about Mummy's life, we're going to come to you, Paul, because you were there and you'll tell us the truth. I said, I will. I'll always tell you the truth. And we thrashed out a lot of things in that meeting, and we talked about sad things too. And William said to me, you really loved Mummy, didn't you? I said, yes, I did, very much. He said, we knew that because we knew she was safe because she always came home to you. And there was always somebody there for her. I said, do you realize every night I would go down to her bedroom, turn back her bed, switch out the lights, leave the bedroom door open and put the landing light on just because I knew she was afraid of the dark. He said, we never knew that. I said, these are the things you should know. The things that I can tell you are the things you should know about Diana, not about a princess, but about your
their
mother.
mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they were so young, and sometimes those memories go away, and not everybody tells you should write it down, don't forget. So sometimes
No.
their only key is people like, who were really close to her, like you.
And you have to remember also that Diana wasn't popular with members of the royal family. They thought she was a rival. They thought that she was taking all the public popularity away from them. And she wasn't popular. And when she died, that veil lifted, and I felt they'll all be happy now because they haven't got any competition. And she was the biggest competition for all of them. And when William and Harry were sucked into that royal world again, I suddenly thought to myself, they're going to be told a completely different story, and history could be rewritten. And they could be told untruths about their mother. But I have a responsibility to those boys to tell them the truth, not fiction, not something made up. There's a scene in The Crown when Charles came around to see Diana. That actually happened. He did pop in one day, and she said to me, what's he here for? Has he come to take away the furniture or something? Has he come? What does he want? I don't understand why he's here. They were divorced, and he'd come just to say that he was early for an engagement, and he'd popped in to say hello, to see if she was all right. When she died, he was back again. He popped in again to see if things were in order, and I followed him around. He says, I'm quite all right. I know my way around here. I thought, no, you can't be left alone. The biggest challenge I had when Diana died was to protect the small world that she valued, that she kept safe, that was secret, that was hers, a very small piece of her life. And I had to make sure that wasn't destroyed or wasn't
or sold off, because you said you had to lock the doors because you thought people might go in and rip off the rug and the furniture,
Yeah. So I just felt I had to protect her memory. I didn't have a legal right to do that. I had a moral obligation. If you lost your best friend, you would want to protect them too, and protect what they kept safe. And some things were not meant for anyone else to see. And I was the keeper of those secrets, and some I still am. But I've had to, over the years, come forward and say, no, Diana wasn't pregnant when she died. I was there. I saw the
Mhm.
autopsy. There wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was just a tragic accident in a tunnel in Paris. Although a lot of people still continue with that conspiracy theory. I mean,
Mhm.
she was still alive at the accident, but she was dead on arrival at hospital. I
Mhm.
spoke to the paramedics. I knew exactly what happened.
Mhm.
So people try to tell me the truth, but really, I know the
You were there.
truth.
You were there to
I was
see it.
there.
Do,
Yeah,
do you
not many
feel
people
that?
can say I was there.
Wait, that's exactly. Do you feel that because rewatching, there was another documentary about the 7 days after Diana passed, and what stuck out to me was that Prince Charles went to make sure that she was picked up and brought home, and
Yes,
not only
he
that,
had
but
to.
well,
I mean,
yes,
it
but
was a
apparent.
shock. It was a shock to me. I didn't expect him in Paris. I thought, why is he here? Why is he turned up? The two of them were estranged and they didn't like each other. But then the penny dropped. He'd come because he was the boy's father. He'd come for William and Harry. He'd come because
Mhm.
Diana was their mother, and that was the respectful thing to do.
And mature thing after
Yes,
all these years, and
yes.
wasn't there a dilemma of whether or not he would be able to fly her back in his plane due to or something the regulations because she wasn't technically
A
a
royal.
royal member of the house,
Yes.
right?
Well,
So
there were
what was the dilemma
dilemmas.
there?
Well, the dilemmas all ran through this whole saga because she wasn't technically a member of the royal family. And the Queen was told by the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, that if she didn't send her aeroplane to bring Diana back, she'd be coming back on a Harrods jet. And did she really want that to happen? The answer was no, of course not. She was still the mother of a future king.
Mhm.
She had to come back in some style. She had to come back as William and Harry's mother and
Mhm.
as a Princess of Wales. She was still Diana, Princess of Wales. So
Mhm.
technically, she wasn't a member of the royal family, but she had to come back in style and
Mhm.
appropriately. So she did come back on the plane. Then
Mhm.
they couldn't decide whether or not she'd have a royal funeral or a private funeral, not being a member
Mhm.
of the royal family. So the Spencers took over. They wanted a private funeral, but the Queen won the day by saying, no, I think the people expect a proper state funeral for Diana
Mhm.
because that's what William and Harry would want. So she won
Mhm.
the day. But then the Queen was confused about whether the flag should fly at half-mast at Buckingham Palace. Well, in
Mm.
those days, only the Royal Standard actually flew at Buckingham Palace when the Queen was in residence. And when
Yes.
she wasn't in residence, there was no flag. So there was no precedent to fly the standard, the royal standard at half-mast. That would mean the sovereign's dead. So the people got confused then because they didn't understand. Of course, it was the Union. If it was the Union flag, that what we call the Union Jack, that could be flown at half-mast, but the royal standard couldn't. So everybody was in a dilemma. Everybody.
Everybody was very upset. And looking back
Yeah,
again, I feel like the queen made the best decision to stay with her
she did.
grandson. She was Elizabeth in this moment. And
Yes,
a lot of her people were upset about that because they were like, "Well, where
yes.
are you? You should be." But she said, "I am taking care of my grandchildren." Okay? They
Then she
were
had to. Then she had to cave in and come back as queen. She came back to
Mm,
London as queen, and then she was our queen. She wasn't Elizabeth anymore. And then the funeral came. And personally, and I am going to be controversial by what I say now, I don't like her being buried on an island, surrounded by water, isolated in death, the way she was in life. I personally think she should have been buried in St. George's Chapel with she is the mother of a future king. And I think she should be buried in a more fitting place. That's only my opinion. So don't shoot the messenger. That's just what I think. Um, William, uh, was only a young boy. William and Harry were young boys.
only a child.
They couldn't make any decisions. So the decisions
No.
were made by the Spencer family in the end. And when we went to Althorp and we had, Althorp, and we went and had lunch with Earl Spencer as Diana was coming by road. We were sat in the dining room. The butler came in and whispered in Earl Spencer's ear, and he got up to his feet and said, "Oh, Diana's arrived, everyone." So we all went out the front hall and onto the front steps, and there was the coffin inside the hearse, and the hearse was covered in flowers, and people had been throwing flowers. He opened the back of the hearse, and he ripped off the royal standard, and he took the Spencer flag and placed it on her coffin. And he turned around to the royal family, to William and Harry and Prince Charles, and said, "She's a Spencer now."
Mm.
Wow. That was tough. That was tough, because for me, she'll always be a royal princess.
Mm-hmm. Well, I read, I don't know why I did this. My mom had only been passed for 2 months, but I read Prince Harry's book. And I understood his emotion and his anger.
His
I
heart
felt
broke.
really bad. I felt really, really bad. I cannot imagine. So
No.
I can understand that. And I know there's a lot of controversy with what's going on with him and his family. And I felt bad for you, because he couldn't even call you by name, and he just said the butler. But then again, you said you had this conversation with him. So I'm just like, well, why is he all mad or angry?
It's
over
confusing. It confused me too, because one minute he was holding my hand and crying, and the next minute he was calling me names in his book Spare. So I have to justify that in my own head. I don't understand it. I knew Harry so well. His heart did break when his mummy died, because he was too young to understand it. William was a little older and could understand it. So you see, Harry then began to act up and act out, because he was searching for love. He was searching for his mother, and he met a 36-year-old woman. Meghan was 36 when he met her. Diana was 36 when she died, in London. And I think she must have cast a spell, because she must have said, well, we could do wonderful things together, you and I, Harry. And maybe he felt his mother's presence at that time, a mature woman speaking to him, not a young girl. And he was bewitched from then on. And so fell in love with her. We thought in Britain that this was the best thing that could ever happen, that Harry had found love.
It was great.
And this couple could be dynamic across the globe, could do wonderful things. The Queen embraced it, the family embraced it, and then the wheels started to come off. And I've analyzed that since. And I think, and I'm going to be very honest with you, I honestly think that Meghan realized that she could never be a star of this show. She could only ever be a supporting actress. And I think that's when it all started to go wrong.
Well, it sounded like from what he wrote too, that the vibes between him and Catherine were just not gelling there. And then again, there's to say, you can have siblings who have loved ones who they get married to, but not everybody gets along. So
and let's just say that Catherine has never put a foot wrong. She has been exemplary in everything, and she's dealt with all this rubbish and not said a word. I mean, incredible character. Our next queen, she's a queen in waiting, and she's doing the job perfectly. She has my 100% support. So does William. The problem is, when Harry went to America and was beguiled by everything else that in his life, he started to tell stories which shouldn't have been told. Those personal problems that he had with his family should have been discussed behind closed doors. He knew the rules. Harry was taught the rules from a very early age by his mother. This is the price you pay for being royal, for having a privileged life, for having lots of money, for having anything you want. You have to stick to these rules. But Harry didn't. So he left the royal family, and then he played by his own rules. And then they started to write their own script and they started to write their own production values. And it wasn't in tandem with the royal family. And I think it's very sad at that point, somebody didn't intervene and pull it back together, because the longer it happened, the wider apart this rift became. And now it's a chasm. And
Yeah,
now I do
it's
not
pretty
think it
bad.
can be repaired. I don't think it can be repaired. I don't.
I
My
it's
mother
just
once,
for me,
my
it's
mother once
painful
said
because
to
I
me,
have a
we talk about mothers and their influence. My mother once said to me, once something is said, it cannot be unsaid.
Yep. Once you squeeze the toothpaste out of the tube, you can't put it back. That's the
No.
way we say it. It's
Yes.
true. I feel, and I have a sister, so I understand sibling, not everybody gets along. I feel pretty terrible. I remember the last thing my mom and I watched together was the Prince Charles becoming King Charles. That was related to the royal family, and we were happy that Harry was there. But I just hope that they can find a ground that they could still be together, because I feel bad that their children can't play together. Can you imagine? It's like, I have a cousin and I haven't even met them. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart.
they're going to grow up. They're going to grow up, and they're going to ask questions. They're going to say, well, why were we never part of that world? Why didn't we
Why
know
did I
our
get to know
heritage?
them?
Yeah.
Yeah, their family,
And
the blood family.
it is very sad for the
So,
king that can't see his grandchildren. He sees
mm,
Kate and William's grandchildren, their children, but he
mhm,
doesn't see William and he doesn't see Harry and Meghan's children, and that's sad. I hope they do come over. I hope they do
mhm.
come for the king's sake. I doubt whether the bridge will be built to the Wales family, to William and Catherine. I doubt that very much, but at least one half of the family can be satisfied, and I think the king deserves that.
Well, and also with everything going on with his health
Mm,
related
mm.
issues, and so is Catherine. Maybe it's best to everybody, let's take a break. It's been pretty quiet actually recently, so let's maybe everybody needs some time and space away from each other, and just
Mm.
and it's and I don't want to end on a negative note or anything
No.
like that. I have to ask you one more question, because,
Yes.
well, I have two more. Did you ever get to see the Princess Diana musical that was on Netflix? Because you are a
Uh,
character in it. I know
uh,
nobody really mentions you in all these TV shows and stuff, but you're a character in it. And they talk about your scene with the dress, the revenge
oh,
dress. You get a
oh yes.
song.
Which when I dressed her that night. Well,
That's
strange you
right.
should mention that, because someone contacted me last week. The musical is opening in Australia, and
Oh,
the guy that's playing me sent me a message to say, "Could you give me the heads up on how to play you? Because I have no idea." Which again
oh,
is another bonkers thing to happen. Weird. Isn't it weird?
I think you're very well portrayed in it. It's
Oh, right.
I personally like it.
Oh,
I'm one of the
right.
people, because it gets a bad rap by a lot of people, but I thought it was pretty delightful, and it ends on a very good note. You know what I mean? I don't
Good.
think it's in bad taste, but you get the best song in the show. So
Right. Okay. Fine.
you're gonna
I
have to
can't
watch it on
sing.
Netflix. I really want to hear what you think.
Yeah. I'll use Diana's line. I can, but I can't sing.
And
Yeah.
that's okay too. That's all right too. So now you have this wonderful book with more stories, and again, please, anybody who's watching and listening,
Mm.
please get a copy, because there's more stories. We haven't even brushed the surface yet of
No.
everything that Paul's been sharing. But overall, I want to end on a note about the
Yes.
Queen,
Yes.
because again, it's been 5 years since she passed,
Mm.
which I find crazy to think. You know what I mean? She got to see all of these presidents and prime ministers in her time, and outlived
Yeah.
everybody. I never thought she
Yeah.
was going to die. I don't think
No.
none of us did.
She should
But
have still been here. Yeah.
oh my gosh, of course. For her legacy, do you feel like, looking back on 5 years later, do you feel like the love for her is still there, especially in England? Do you feel like a lot of people still kind of look towards her and what she did in the past and what should be done going
Mm.
forward?
I think it is. I think the love for her is still here. We she was with us for all our lives. There's no one that
Mm.
didn't think of the Queen as their Queen. It's very difficult to think of the King. And when we sing God Save the Queen, I still sing God Save the Queen, because it's in my DNA. And
Yes.
I think with the King honoring his mother the way he will be next week, I think
Mhm.
that will be a resurgence in love for our Queen. Um, I don't think we'll ever see the likes of her again. I do honestly believe it's the end of an era. I think that Victorian Edwardian court system has gone. The king is a caretaker king. He's hanging on to some of his mother's values, but I think we will see a huge change in the way the royal family behave in the next few years, and certainly when William becomes king. He's already said that he wants royalty to have a small r, not a capital R. And he will be king with a small k, not a large K. And he will be the people's king, won't he? His mother was a people's princess. He will be the people's king. He will carry his mother's values forward. And I think he will finish the work that she started. I think that is his mantra. So once again, Diana will come forward into the spotlight 30, 40 years later. It's incredible, isn't it? That she has such longevity. Don't underestimate that woman. Although she was only here for a short time, she made an enormous impact on humanity. And
because she was kind and shared her kindness with people.
She was kind.
That's what people remember. That's what we're all thinking about.
She was an angel here on earth. Had she come today, we would have respected that more, I think. But back then, we didn't understand it. We didn't get it. I think today's a different time and a different place.
Well, thank you very much.
We need more
for
kindness.
Sharing. Well, of course. I'm glad you highlight a lot of that with Queen Elizabeth and Diana and your own kindness, getting to, help her, Princess Diana, at some point in time, and helping the Queen. And I really appreciate all your stories. And thank you very much for coming on the show. Again, everybody, the Royal Insider, make sure you get a copy. We like to do a Kodak moment. So at the very end of the show, we take a photo together. So
okay, how'd you do this?
Here we go. We just get to pose. So here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Perfect. Well, thank you again for being on the show. Really a true honor to finally get to talk to you, because again, my mom would have been flipping her lid right now that I'm talking to you. So I'm sure she's watching.
She is. And what company she's in?
Well, that's what I said. I said, I'm sure she ran over to Princess Diana's table. It's like, hey. So, but thank you to thank you to everybody who's been watching. You could follow Paul on Instagram. He has his own podcast and he answers people's questions. So please stay in touch with Paul. Thank you guys all for listening. I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and go out into the world and spread your kindness to others. I think that we should end that way.
God bless you.
God bless you too, Paul. Have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.